dear participants, for being as efficient as possible. I realize we've missed out, we couldn't take a group photo with our online participants, but at the end of this session, we shall request you to open your camera so that we can have a group photo online for those who are connecting online. I would like to now hand over to Mr. Mark Tasek, who will be moderating the panel session as well as the Q&A session.
Thank you very much, Judith. Good morning, everyone. It is a great honor and pleasure to moderate this session. I think you have seen a very good presentation this morning. The presentation done by Torbjörn, very comprehensive on the importance of to take into consideration the environment component in the development of the digital strategy. We talk about the digital compact. We are going to have before end of this month, around 22-23, UN General Assembly on the future we want, and we are going to adopt the global digital compact. And the environment component is very, very important. Today we are going to discuss on the finding of the report. And we have several key panelists. I have 3 panelists in person and 2 online. Let me start by our distinguished panelists online. We have Mrs. Irene Moga from UNEP. Welcome. I have also Mr. Mbakalu from Nigeria online. Mr. Kalu, please put your camera on. Are you with? Are you online, Mr. Kalu?
Yes, I am. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you. And in person, I have Mr. Sames from the Ministry of Innovation and Technology. I have Dr. Tafere from Tony Blair Institute for Global Change. And also I have my friend, Dr. Emmanuel, the Regional Director for IT Office in Africa. Let me tell you how we are going to organize this session. We have 1 hour, 30 minutes. The objective is to make it more interactive, to get more view and more insight from the participant. Just our panelists will introduce the subject following some question. We have also Torbjörn online. If you have any question on the report, you can also answer. Let me start by my first panelist, Mr. Seyoum Mangesa, the CEO of Digital Economy Development Ministry of Innovation and Technology. As you know, the green gas emission contribute around 2.5 up to 3.5, sometimes it's 4%. To the global emission. But ICT can also help to reduce this green gas emission between 15 and 20%. Why developing strategy, national strategy on digital technology is very important if we take into consideration the component, the environmental component. In Ethiopia, you have developed this digital strategy 2025. And one of the key pillars is the infrastructure development to support the digital transformation goal. Could you elaborate on how Ethiopia approach to infrastructure expansion? I know you want to do a lot of things to expand the broadband infrastructure in the whole country to ensure inclusivity by bridging the digital divide and also addressing the issue of environmental sustainability. You have 7 minutes. I know you have a lot of things to say for the global, for the digital strategy Ethiopia 2025, but please summarize in 7 minutes. Thank you.
Thank you for this opportunity. From the Ethiopian government side, there are a lot of indicators for the inclusive digital infrastructure in Ethiopia. The internet penetration has from 70% in 2019, now closely to 40%. This is one of the clarity. And using internet and data service, more than 5 million people currently. Mobile coverage also currently more than 85 millions people. As you know, the most of Ethiopian population is living in rural area, around 18% of the population. Rural connectivity was one of the major focus of telecom expansion, which includes expanding broadband infrastructure to rural undeserved area. In addition, expansion of the infrastructure affordability in another area where Ethiopia is showing progress. The government is working to reduce the cost of internet access through various measures, including encouraging more internet service provider. Currently, more than 3/4 internet providers in Ethiopia. The Universal Service Fund has already established and expanded to operational in coming years. Once of the operational is the fund will be used, subsidized to connectivity of project in underserved areas. Recognize that as alone it's not enough. The government is promoting digital literacy program to empower citizens, especially rural communities, to effectively utilize the digital technology. In all activities, the government is encourage environmental sustainable, including using solar powers to power up device as well as focusing on green technology. Currently, Ethiopia focus on energy efficiency, technology and renewable energy source power its digital infrastructure. Ethiopia digital demonstrates a commitment to sustainable development by integrating green technology, which the challenge remains in terms of implement and scale up in this initiative. Some of the practical example of this initiative, currently solar powers based solution in Ethiopia has been deployed solar powers stations in rural area. This reduced reliance in diesel generators, lower carbon emissions, and provided the cost efficient, effectively communities. The second one is green data center. One of the basic ones, the green data center. The government encouraged the development of green data centers. This is supported by different initiatives and supported the private sector to develop this green data center. We had also the criteria to give the efficiency of this license by the ministry also. The e-waste recycling initiative, several initiatives are underway to promote the e-waste recycling and propose disposals. A proclamation is already there that enforce e-waste management. The last one is energy efficiency networks equipment. Telecom companies are encouraged to deploy energy efficiency networks equipment and power saving technology to reduce energy consumption. Those are the main issues by the digital Ethiopia strategy mentioned and included this all things. This implemented by the government and the priority issue of the next years also. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much for highlighting a key initiative from the government, such as to develop this green data center. I think it's something very important. Also using solar power and reducing energy consumption. But I think you already follow the presentation done by Torbjörn. How the finding of this report can help you in the definition of the next stage of the strategy 2025, because it's almost finished this next year, and how this finding of the report can help for the second phase of the national strategy.
The report is good. We had think some things will do from the government sides. We have seen the gap of the government of the environmental sustainability also. So we need some tasks with the government. So it is already included. We will prepare the Digital Ethiopia 2030. That's one of the main issues. The environment sustainability is one of the digital part of that included fully. Thank you.
Very much. In conclusion, this report is very helpful. Will be very helpful to define this Ethiopia Digital Strategy 2030. Let me go now to Dr. Tafere. I think all African countries have the same challenge like Ethiopia. And let me talk about a global level. When you talk about access infrastructure, we are lag behind. We are almost to 37% access to internet for Africa. And in the rural areas, its access is around 21%. It is something key challenge for the continent. Well, you have a lot of experience with Tony Blair Institute for the global change. What can African countries do to ensure that they are not left behind in the digital transformation, while also promoting an environmental sustainable digital ecosystem?
Thank you very much, moderator. First of all, let me thank UNCTAD and ECA for inviting me to be part of this very interesting gathering here. Let me also thank my friend Torbjörn and his team for the excellent report. They continue to produce this report with ahead of the curve type of idea, which is a good example is this year's topic. Now, I have 7 minutes, and let me make perhaps 3 to 4 points around the issues that you raised. First of all, the digital divide, which is the major issue, and became really very glaringly obvious during the COVID-19 pandemic, when we realized that with the shutdown and everyone staying at home, in larger economies, in the developed economies, they didn't continue work. They didn't stop work. They continue working at home through online. They continue shopping online. Schools continue online. But there were countries and regions where this was not possible. So for Africa, obviously, that was a major wake-up call. Digital transformation is no longer a choice, but it's a must. It's a must if industrialization is going to happen. It's a must if SDGs are going to be achieved. It's a must if poverty is going to be reduced. So this is one point. Related to that is the digital divide, and Torbjörn has highlighted some of this, the scale of that divide. Let me give you a few figures just to highlight what we're talking about when we say digital divide. Now, in our continent, apparently up to 70% of the population have access to internet, but only 25% use it, which means there's a huge usage gap, or sometimes they take it uptake rate, which is only 50%. So coverage may be there, but usage is not there. So that's a big gap. Also, access to computers and at household level is only 28%, compared to major economies more than 75%, above 80. So this is another indicator of this gap, or this divide we're talking about. Frequent internet use is less common in Africa. There are figures about 30% only, compared to over 65% in non-African developing countries, not even advanced, non-African developing countries. And also fewer than 45% of African adults have access to internet on their phones. Now these are sort of indicators of this digital divide that we're talking about. And only 43% of the African population have mobile phones, while the percentage is much, much higher, as you know, big economies. And the last figure I want to give is that in 2023 figure, I think it's ITU figure, 850 million people in Africa do not have access to internet. So this is just to indicate what we mean by digital divide. There is a serious divide, and there is a need to catch up. But second and important point I want to highlight for us as a takeaway is this is only about access we're talking about. There is another type of divide, multiple divide. Divide between, for example, rich and poor in the countries, which means those who can have access easily or not. There is a divide between urban and rural, big gap, big divide there. And between those who have access to electricity and who don't. 57% or plus of the population in Africa doesn't have electricity, and they can't have access to internet if they don't have electricity. Between those who have digital literacy opportunities and those who don't, because we're learning that having smartphones is one thing, but being able to use it effectively is another thing, especially if you want to add value and capture value from it. So the reason I'm highlighting this is that to say that in addressing the digital divide issue, it's important to remember these multiple divisions or divides. It's not only a question of access. It's really ensuring that the usage is also there. It's also ensuring about affordability. That's another important issue. You may have access to internet, but if it's taking up to 24 or plus % of your monthly income to access it, then it's a problem. In fact, the ITU figure shows that internet cost is 5 times more than the global average in Africa for just 5 gigabytes. There is also quality of service. That's also another gap, and if it's not relevant, the material that you have access using these devices, then having access alone is not enough. Is it available in your language, for example? And that's also another issue. Digital literacy is another important issue that is where there is a huge divide, digital divide between African countries and the rest of the world. And most importantly, absolutely critical is infrastructure and the nature of the infrastructure. ICT infrastructure is very critical. So very quickly related to that, and then if we say, what is it that African governments can do? I think they must realize that a critical component of developing this infrastructure is public investment. Whether we like it or not, governments have to recognize that there's a limit to how much private sector could do, but they have to lead the way by investing. So public investment is important, and also important to make sure that access is affordable. Otherwise, if you leave it just simply for profitable private sector, access may be there, but it may be unaffordable. Another very, very important for governments to pay attention now as we move into recognizing the importance of digital transformation is digital literacy. Very, very important. In the future, the new generation now, whether we like it or not, they have to be digitally literate. Otherwise, jobs and other opportunities will not be there. So these are on the digital divide side. Another issue I want to touch in the context of the African thing is related to the sustainability issue that Torbjörn highlighted. There, I will address it in 2 very quick points. The first one is that the issue that he highlighted, that digital transformation is important and we're moving into it. Now we're talking about AI, but the sustainability issue is a major concern. He gave some figures, and I was really shocked when I saw some of these figures IMF produced, in addition to what the report produced. And let me share with you. I'm doing this because now we all, Tony Blair Institute including, are pushing governments to pay attention to artificial intelligence, to pay attention to digital transformation, and so on. Apparently, this was mentioned by Tobion in a very generic way, but the crypto assets, the Bitcoins and so on, and AI consume a lot of energy, as he highlighted. But listen to this, mining one crypto asset, i.e. one transaction of one Bitcoin, requires roughly the same amount of electricity as the average person in Ghana and Pakistan consume in 3 years. Just one transaction, one Bitcoin transaction. That's huge, the amount of energy required to mine these cryptocurrencies. Crypto mining, as he highlighted, Tobion, and data centers together apparently now account for 2% of the world electricity demand in 2002. I think this is what Tobion highlighted. And in 2008, it's expected to rise to 3.5%, which is equivalent to, and this really blew me off, equivalent to a current consumption of Japan, which is a country with 125 million people. Now, we also know that now we have GPT, yeah. And we are really getting into it, and we're finding it much more fast and useful than Google. Apparently, a search using this chat GPT requires 10 times more electricity than just using Google to search the same search, due to the electricity consumption needs and database. So this is something we have to really pay attention as we move into this, inevitably, as we move into this new technologies and we start acquiring them. Now, lastly, and very quickly, the issue raised about critical minerals that we have in Africa. And on the one hand, we are very fortunate. Apparently, some of these global reserves in cobalt, for example, about 55% is in DRC in Africa. This is highlighted in the report. The report also highlights, like Guinea, for example, 25% of the global reserves in bauxite is in Guinea in Africa. The same with manganese, South Africa, and Madagascar, Mozambique, and Tanzania alone together. They have 24% of the global reserves in graphite. These are all, as already highlighted, important minerals that a lot of these advanced economies need to advance the sustainable energy and so on. The question is, as Torbjörn was saying, that I think things have to change now. For years and years, African countries have just exported unprocessed a lot of their minerals. But now there is an industrialization agenda, very serious one, including in the context of the AFCFTA. AFCFTA is no longer a trade agenda, it's also industrialization agenda. And there's a lot of talk about the regional value chains. So it is about time that African countries pay attention to value addition. And very quickly, what does it mean? It means using green technologies. And that's where the development partners are going to be very helpful. It means also, more importantly, making sure that the revenue from these minerals are plowed back into productive sector rather than non-productive sector. And more importantly, it means industrial policy. We have to have industrial policy. It's very, very critical. But the bottom line, lastly, the reason why African countries, unfortunately, are lagging behind, the reason why industrialization is very slow can be described in 2 words: productive capacity, limited productive capacity. If we don't have the productive capacity, then catching up is going to be difficult. These are the competencies, the skills, the technologies, the infrastructure, the private sector development, the transport network you need to be able to produce a wide range of goods and services that you can consume domestically and export competitively. Without product capacity, you cannot add value. Without product capacity, you can't even recover from global crisis and debt, because you're just always waiting for somebody to buy your raw material, for somebody to lend you loans. Let me stop here.
Thank you very much. I think it's very important you highlight the issue of this digital divide, focus on access, affordability, also, and energy access also. I think you provide some recommendation for government to sort it out, this issue. Also, you highlight the importance of this emerging technology, like such as AI, blockchain, nanotechnology. And also, there is a one point you highlight very, very important. It is the cryptocurrency by blockchain. I think Torben will come later on this question, the high consumption of electricity of this technology. It is something we have to look at carefully in the continent. And for the industrial and the green industry also, we need to have a policy on the continental level and on the national level. This come to the issue of the AFCTA, because I think we already have this AFCTA in the continent, as well as we adopt to some time ago this Africa digital single market. And also we are working on the digital trade protocol. And I want to ask one question to my friend, Mr. Kalu, Executive Director of Africa International Trade and Commerce Research based in Nigeria. And the question is, the African Continental Free Trade Area play a pivotal role in enhancing the continent economic integration and development. How can the AFCTA be leveraged to promote a more integrated and sustainable digital economy across, given the key issue highlighted by Dr. Tafere and also the key finding of the report? Over to you, Mr. Kalu.
Thank you very much. Standing from Nigeria, we always have a protocol we must stand on. I'm standing on an existing protocol that has already been established and recognizing His Excellency, the ministers and other ambassador and diplomatic community in the house. A very important question you've asked, and it's something that over the years, we've been advocating for Africa to come together and have a single blueprint on how we'll develop economically. And here we have it, AU, bringing together AFCFTA. A fantastic, not just a trade agreement, just like the last guy said, it's now an industrial policy. Beyond industrial policy, it has now become a holistic tool that we can develop as a continent. For example, we have the Continental Digital Transformation Strategy for Africa that starts from 2020 to 2030. It aligns with the recent protocol on digital economy under AFCFTA. So AFCFTA is an overarching agreement that will have different protocols that will enable it to work. Currently, AFCFTA, it is not just a document, but now a legal process, which if you look at the report that has been outlined, it points out to the rapid digitalization, the reshaping of the economy, and as well as where the raw material that we encourage, stimulate, and drive this rapid digitalization. They are all from Africa. But Africa over the years have not benefited from it. And here we are with AFCFTA coming together saying we want to unify the regulatory framework in Africa. We want to unify the investment opportunity in Africa, that we ensure not just pulling out raw material from Africa, but as well as ensuring that Africa develop its raw material and support the global system. If you look at the Global Trade Index, you realize that African contribution to whether in the production, whether a finished product is very minimal. However, no production globally, I must say, that does not have its root from Africa, because they take this raw material, they add value to it, and Africa is left to buying from it. No production that takes place in Africa. AFCFTA has now come to say, no, we can't stop, we can't continue this way, we want to address it. And bearing in mind, for the inclusivity of and leveraging AFCFTA to drive more integration and sustainable digital economy in Africa, which of course, the agreement started in 2018, we all know, and in now a legal document that is binding on all member states. So we have started seeing some development across the value chains. We have started seeing some emerging investment. We have started seeing new technology and reversing of situations that has in the past has not happened. because, for example, Article 5 of the ECA agreement states that decisions taken by Council of Ministers while acting within the mandate shall be binding on state parties. So as a legal document now, it's now supporting even national policies, investments, trade policy, industrial policy that happen in the state. They must align with the continental framework. You see now, when you go to Article 3 of the agreement, it stipulates harmonizing rules and common principles. So now Africa is now stepping into harmonizing rules, fragmented systems here and there, where investment is thwart, investment is taught, because they can't cross to other countries, they can't cross to other regions. So AFCSN is now coming to harmonize this, ensuring that whatsoever policies that have been put in place in the past has to be reformed to align with AFCFTA. If you have signed an agreement, you must sign it. And with the digital trade protocol, it also speaks to that now we must have an economy in this process that is inclusive. It doesn't matter which country you come from, provided you're a member state, you must be able to have a policy that will allow the other member state to come in. And if you then look at it, talking about digital transformation strategy of 2020 to 2021, it's also aligned with the report itself. What is the vision of the strategy? It says we want an inclusive society, a digital society for Africa that improves the quality of life, citizens, and strengthens the existing economic sector. So currently, the report has found that Africa is not benefiting from it. The poor divide, the rich divide, the access to electricity. And currently, we don't even know. There's no system in place to track the consumption of digital transformation in Africa. That is the limitation that we have to work on. Because when we start looking at, we start knowing how we're going to green this energy production. For example, I'll give you an example. Currently in Nigeria, there is fuel scarcity. We still depend on 100%, most of our infrastructure is dependent on petroleum. So there is a hike. And Nigeria is the poverty capital of the world. So we have issues. But how do we address it now with AFCFTA? We must start moving from using fossil fuel to using more renewable energy. Well, we have it. We have power. We have sun. So it has to be part of it across other African countries. And thank goodness that Rwanda is also using like a proof of concept. Rwanda is not showing itself as a proof of concept where a lot of cars are not hybrid, and with government incentive putting in place to encourage people to use that and encourage investment in that area. And that is what most African countries also have to do, like Nigeria. Like South Africa is also using this proof of concept, trying to use external alternative energy to empower the economy. So what we are saying now is this, that AFCFTA has now given us a legal backing to be able to drive our development based on the digital revolution that is taking place globally. Africa cannot be seen to be left behind anymore. We must all come together, use this AFCFTA that we put in, where there will be knowledge transfer. A Kenyan innovator should find it easy to be able to work in, say, Botswana because of AFCFTA. So there will be knowledge transfer, there will be investment transfer across the country, and best practices will also be there. That is what AFCFTA is really doing. And we believe that with what we have started, and we are going to leverage it. And there's one fundamental part that we've not even talked about. We've not talked about the issue of intellectual property component of all this. Who owns intellectual property and how will Africa benefit from it? And we also have AFCFTA trying to address this. AFCFTA are putting a protocol intellectual property, which the annexes is in work on. So what we are going to be seeing in the next 20, 30 years down the line is that Africa will emerge as a contributor and as well as not just a contributor to the global multilateral system, but as well as we own how we move. So in all seriousness, even with the 500% increase in raw material that will emerge from Africa, but AFCFTA is just going to be there to make it happen. But national government have to take responsibility. Because if we are going to be saying that in 2025, 500% raw material will increase, that will feed the digital economy, we must develop a strategic and deliberate roadmap to be able to benefit from it and as well as contribute to it. So finally, I would just want to make one last point on digital capacity building. And the right speaker has slightly pointed out, if you are not digitally informed, equipped, we might find it difficult to engage in the future. Most young Africans are already doing fantastically well in this area, but they need government support. Government must be able to come in and build an ecosystem where it's enabled for that will be enabling private sector, not just in terms of putting policies, but that policies must aim to development. We should not be seeing policies implementation and policy somersaulting anymore, because if we start seeing that, we will not get far. So, for example, if we have to build an ecosystem where we equipped, educate our young people on how to be digitally informed, there must be policies to support it, and there must be investment to support it. And it will not be those investment and those policies must not be discriminatory in nature because of AFCFTA. We should not be seeing a country doing well, and as well as the other country, because it's coming from country A that is a member of AFCFTA, and country B put countermeasure to counter that. We must also, for this to be very effective, because most of our young people are very mobile now, we must address the issue of free movement of people. Ladies and gentlemen, I believe AFCFTA is that tool that we need at this point, and it will be a tool that we can leverage on to have inclusive digital economy for Africa. Thank you very much. That's my intervention for now.
Thank you very much for that. I think you highlight the importance of the AFCFTA and also the big issue around this AFCFTA, our African country going to benefit on. And you provide some recommendation for African government, private sector. Also, you focus on the digital capacity is something very important, because we want to have one single market. And as you know, 90% of the new job it will be digital or need a component digital. Thank you very much for highlighting this. And also, government need also to take the responsibility to develop the infrastructure. And this come to directly to the question I would like to ask my friend, the director of regional office of ITU. As you know, for when we talk about infrastructure, we have a lot of gap of infrastructure in the continent. We have also some data center. We have around 129 data center in the continent, and few of them are green data center. Also, we are going to the 4th industrial revolution, putting in place some digital infrastructure, broadband using satellite. We talk about this emerging technology AI, and also Dr. Tafari talked about this issue of blockchain, cryptocurrency. Now, what key investment are needed to scale up data infrastructure in Africa to meet the future demand, specifically in terms of securing access to electricity for cooling data center?
Thank you very much, and I really appreciate. Special thanks to UNCTAD for inviting us to this important event, and I want also to take this opportunity to commend a good work of done by UNCTAD on this digital economy report, which really highlighted most of the critical areas that we need to look at as we look on digitizing the Africa and embracing the digital economy. Data is a new oil. Everybody is saying that data is a new oil. But even oil, we know that for oil to be useful, it needs to be refined. Likewise, for data, need to be collected, need to be extracted to get meaningful out of it. Every transaction that we're doing now, being a mobile money transaction, being exchange of message, being a purchase of anything, merchants, it generates data. This year for Africa, we say that the year of education. And one of the things that has been highlighted is digital will open multiple pathways for education. And when we talk of digital, we are talking about connectivity, we are talking about e-learning platforms, which all generates a lot of data. But more importantly, we heard even today that artificial intelligence, and blockchains, they're going to consume a lot of energy. But why are they consuming a lot of energy? Because when you talk of artificial intelligence, you're highlighting two important things. You're highlighting big data, and you are highlighting processing capacity, because you have to process huge amount of data in order to make a decision. Being any artificial intelligence that you're talking about, any intelligence, it needs data, it needs processing power. Two important things. When it comes to blockchain, and he gave a very good example of mining a Bitcoin, it's the same story. You need huge amount of data, you need processing. And all this consume a lot of not only processing power, but energy, because the more you process, the more you spend energy. Statistics show that 1% to 1.8% of the energy globally is used by data centers. Singapore's use 7% of the energy. And one of the reasons is because they have AI strategy, and the country has embraced the AI. So they have a lot of algorithms and data centers that are processing these AI algorithms and spend a lot of data, spend a lot of energy. As it has been said, we cannot address digitalization and environmental sustainability in silos. This goes hand in hand. What Africa needs now in terms of investment, which is the question that has been asked to me. First of all, number one, we need to have new models for data centers. What are these models? We need models that support public-private partnership and investments. Green data centers are possible. Google is talking about by 2030, all the data centers are going to be green data centers, which means technology is there. We need to have enabling policies. Without enabling policies in the environment, we cannot promote, we cannot have these investors investing and coming up with state-of-the-art technologies. 2/3 of the data centers in Africa are in South Africa, as you mentioned. And one of the reasons is because of the enabling policies. So we need to have enabling policies on infrastructure in order to attract investments of green data centers to reduce the carbon footprint. The Africa Digital Transformation Strategy 2020-2030 highlights that one of the critical infrastructure is data center. Data center, as data is growing exponentially, will need more data centers. So we need more investment on energy, renewable energy. The report that we're going through is talking about most of the materials that are used to make green energy are from Africa. Today, we are talking of electric cars. What enabled electric cars, among others, is the development of the battery technology. Everybody, even my colleague here when he was talking, most of the materials that are used for the new battery technologies comes from Africa. When we talk of green data centers, it means we need to have battery technologies in place so that we can have renewable energies. All these materials are in Africa. So we need to invest not only on the final product, but also on the whole chain, because we need batteries, we need solar panels, but are batteries and solar panels produced in Africa? That's the question that we need to ask ourselves. So let's invest on adding the, I like you talked about value addition. One of the colleagues talked about value. Value addition could be not only using our materials to import to get the battery in the continent, but investing on battery technologies, investing on solars, investing on developing wind turbines that could be used to generate energy that is sufficient for green data centers and thereby reduce the carbon footprint. That's very, very important. Another important thing is data centers need connectivity, because when you talk of data center, it's about inflow and outflow of data. How could data flow that I can use data center as a service? You know, there's various uses of data center. You can use it infrastructure as a service, platform as a service, or software as a service. All this as a service has a meaning. For example, if I use infrastructure as a service, I don't need to have my own infrastructure to do my business. I can use infrastructure somewhere. Just what I need is connectivity. My data is stored there, the computation is there. All I need is just my software and a small device. I can use the whole platform from the data center investors. I can use even the softwares. I don't need to care, only that I have a device to connect. So connectivity is key when we talk about the use of data center. So we need to have enabling policy and regulatory frameworks that support investments sustainably in Africa. You cannot talk of data centers, global trading, Africa trading, while still the data policies does not allow cross-border flow of data. This is like creating something and then you create a barrier as well. Because if we are talking about doing business as Africans, it means any business data should flow from one country to another. But also we need to reduce the number of data centers, have state-of-the-art big data centers that meets our needs, but not highly scattered within the region. That's also very important. But the most important for that to happen is meaningful connectivity, that I can connect to a reliable data center that is available for 24/7 for me to be able to do my business. So that is also one of the most important, that let's create an enabling policy environment that will attract investment in infrastructure, both connectivity and data centers, so that the continent could be connected. Africa is not fiberized yet. We need to invest on connecting the whole continent as well. You remember when there was a fiber cut some months ago in Africa, we were suffering. The only question that we need to ask ourselves, if Africa was connected, it means you can go from different routes. Not necessarily that's one route that we have to go when there's a fiber cut. I can go from north, I can go from west, I can go from east, I can go from south. But because the continent is not connected, that's why we're facing this. We need to fiberize our continent. We need to distribute these big data centers within the continent and make sure that they're interconnected. They can exchange data so that we can build a sustainable digital economy. But more importantly, collaboration is needed on green data centers by working with these big companies, investments, public-private partnership to attract investments in new and emerging technologies in energy that has a potential of reducing the carbon footprint. Thank you.
Thank you very much for this. You highlight a very good point related to this development green data center. Of course, we need in Africa to have a new approach for developing this green data center. Also, we have to look at the continental level, if we can have a regional data center or sub-regional data center. It is something I think we have to look at carefully at the AU level in collaboration with ITU and ECA and UNCTAD also. Meaningful connectivity, of course, it is a key. A more investment is needed on energy. I think you highlight key point. We can get a lot of discussion around this point to make sure the digital technology, digital era will be a reality for the continent. You highlight also for developing this green data, this data center, this collaboration. All we discuss since this morning, we can't do without collaboration. We need government, we need partners, we need private sector, we need international organization. And now I come to our colleague, our sister from UNEP, Mrs. Irene. What role can partnership between government, private sector, and international organization play in ensuring monitoring and standard data reporting framework for digital environment impact? I think it is a one of key mission of UNEP. Thank you.
Thank you. Just give me a hands up if you can hear me well. Okay. Yeah, I would like to commend UNCTAD for a wonderful report, and thanks for organizing this important and timely session, and also to our ECA colleagues and all the previous speakers. Keyword is collaboration. We recognize the significant importance of the report now for the continent in addressing the need for digital economy and digital transition. However, as we are running towards that transition, let us not forget the impacts that have been highlighted by Tobjon on the environmental aspects. So when we talk of collaboration and the role of partners and UN agencies, I would like to highlight key 4 points: why we need collaboration, why we need partnership to advance the gaps that have been highlighted. So one, partnership is important to create global reporting standards, because we are talking of the impacts, we have heard of the statistics, we have heard of the numbers, but if we don't have global reporting standards or harmonized standards, we cannot see the progress that we are all making together for the continent to advance. So partnerships can help develop harmonized standards, reporting frameworks to track environmental impact of digitalization. And this would also help us as partners advise governments and other bodies of the impact, of the progress, of the slowback as well that are being faced in the continent. But again, why partnership? As the previous speaker mentioned of leveraging private public partnership. Without partners, we cannot harness the private sector's mandate and advance technology to capture it with the government and UN organization. So we need a partnership so that we can make use of the advances that Google is talking about, Huawei is talking about, Oracle is talking about, so that we can bring them to the government side and to the partner side. But we also need partnerships in the whole realm of capacity building. Africa is a bit left behind when it comes to capacity building in the adoption, in the use, in the access, and in the analytical side of data and assessing how digitalization makes impact, or how this digitalization is impacting the government. So if we leverage on different partners' capabilities in capacity building, we can focus on tools, modules, packages, and transferring knowledge to local agencies and to local entities in our governments, so that we can have a comprehensive training curricula that can inform and also that can address. We need partnership that supports regional collaboration for policy harmonization. We have talked a lot on the need for African countries to ensure that ICT policies and the digital policies address the sustainability angle. But African nations alone, we cannot pull the resources to do that. We need to share knowledge through regional collaborations. We have our regional bodies. For instance, we have East African Communications Organization. We have EAC, SADC, ECOWAS, and many other technical bodies. So we need to bring on board this regional collaboration so that we can harmonize our policies that address digitalization. Again, we talked of public-private partnership, but I would also like to focus on leveraging technological innovation for environmental monitoring. Partnerships with private sector can help introduce technologies for monitoring environmental impact. Right now, most of the statistics that have been shown, probably the precise numbers comes from the developed world. We don't know the precision from Africa. So if we want to measure the greenhouse gas emission contribution from developing countries, it is tough. We don't know the exact amount of e-waste that is coming from the Africa regions, though we know that a lot of it is being wasted here. So technology partnership can empower African governments with the data that is needed to make informed policy. We can make use of the Google's data collection and energy consumption. We can also learn from what is coming from South Africa and leverage it in other countries. Without repeating what other members have said, I would just like to call for action for all of us who are here and who are listening, that the UNCTAD digital report have opened our eyes, and it has been a crucial reminder that Africa's digital economy must be accompanied by sustainable economy, that we cannot deny. But to address the gaps, we need partnerships between governments, development agencies, UN organization, private sector, international organizations, which is vital and timely. The partnerships will help us ensure that Africa not only benefits from digitization, but also leads and take ownership in the development. So let us work together to bring the monitoring system and reporting, which is important to help us move, revise, or revamp what we are talking about. That is my intervention for now. And thank you for inviting us to be here. Thank you.
Thank you very much for this. I think it's very important. You highlight the partnership is a key. And of course, in the report also, it was highlighted for African country to put a lot of importance on the partnership to lead the digital technology and to be part also. It's very important. And thank you very much for your contribution. Now we are running out of time. Now I'm going to open the floor. And if you have any question to Torbjörn for the presentation and to the panelists or any comment on the report, you are welcome. Just so you introduce yourself, and you have only 2 minutes. And I'm going to start by the online question. Judith.
We have one online question from Mike Strainer. How much of the revenue generated from the mining of minerals needed in the global digital economy stays in Africa? And how much of that is going towards building a more sustainable digital economy in Africa?
Okay, I'm going to take, this question is for Torbjörn, I think. Let me check if you have any, let me check on my right, if you have any question or any comment. Go ahead, please.
Thank you. My name is Assumpta. I'm from Rwandan Embassy. Mine is not a question. I would like to make a comment on the report. But allow me first to recognize all distinguished speakers and give some few figures on my country, Rwanda, in transformation of digital, in digital transformation. The government of Rwanda has placed digital transformation as a central tool for facilitating service delivery as well as economic growth. I'm sharing a few data to give an example. For example, the entire country is covered by the 4G connectivity at the level of 96%. 81% of population has also mobile phone that also allows them to do transaction online. We have also 89% of government services that are offered online. The last 100% of health centers are connected to internet. So those are figures that I wanted to share first. With regard to the report, I thank for the presenters. Also, I would like to emphasize also the need to work as Africans as far as raw materials is concerned. The extraction gap is very huge. Maybe the infrastructure facilities are needed to work together within Africa so that we can transform the Africa in digital transformation. Thank you.
Thank you very much for highlighting the case of Rwanda. I think Rwanda, it is a good example in Africa to show how digital technology can be used for sustainable development. I think you have a very good policy. Also, the infrastructure is well developed, access, digital literacy, all these issues are being taken in consideration in the digital strategy developed by Rwanda, calling Nikki Plan. Next, Mr.
Thank you for the opportunity. My name is Moges Tufa from Adama Science and Technology University. I'm happy to be here. I learned a lot of interesting facts here, where we academia has to contribute towards this digital transformation and how to make it inclusive. I make some study on this AF, African Free Trade Agreement, and in that specific, I have some specific question for Mr. Sand. So in that study, what I found is harmonization of standards are yet to be done a lot of gaps are observed there. For example, to participate in the international trade, the African farmers has to adopt ISO certifications. In that respect, even I take sample from East Africa, it is below 10% that farmers who adopted this kind of certifications. Harmonization of systems are still far away from reality. So the integration of African business or to develop some new business models to address this huge agenda is under progress according to our study. So what has been planned in the new framework that this report showed us about how to move the African farmers toward this the adoption of the new digital technologies. On the other hand, Dr. Tafere already mentioned that it is not only access, but the usage capacities also has a lot of limitations, and how to address the gaps on both sides. On one side, supply, on the other side, usage. And this is my questions. Thank you.
Thank you. On my right also. Go ahead, please.
Okay, thank you. My question also similar to the former colleague of mine. I'm not clear about this FECT, the African Free Trade Agreement that the Pan-African fathers were, declaring about the common African currency and borderless of Africa. But so far, this has not materialized. For that case, for so many cases, for example, we are participating quite a number of such meetings. Even we use, for example, some stationery materials for the meeting. It says made in China or made in India. So how can the FECTA, the Africa Free Trade Continental Agreement, and those Pan-African fathers who are, promoting and nurturing the idea of Pan-Africanism, a common agenda of having a common currency and the borderless of Africa. So how we reconcile with even those BRICS actually. So the South-South, relation Africa to the BRICS. So anyone who can reflect on this and intervention, thank you very much.
Introduce yourself.
My name is Tarafa. I'm a researcher and media practitioner. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Another one in my left, in my right, gender balance. I know it's not gender balance now. It is. Okay, go ahead, please.
Voilà, merci beaucoup. Je me nomme Adama, de l'ambassade du Sénégal à Addis Abeba. Je voudrais tout d'abord remercier la CIA et donc la Conférence des Nations Unies pour le commerce et le développement. Je voudrais mettre l'accent sur la pollution des déchets électroniques évoqués dans le rapport pour dire que ces appareils, comme on le sait, ne sont pas produits donc en Afrique, mais la majeure partie donc finissent leur vie donc dans nos pays. Et pour cela, je voudrais donc poser la question suivante: s'il existe donc un projet, des projets donc au niveau de la CIA ou de la Conférence des Nations Unies pour le commerce et le développement, pour accompagner les États en dehors donc de la législation et donc pour accompagner donc les États à lutter contre la pollution donc des déchets électroniques. Voilà, donc c'était ça ma question. Merci beaucoup.
Merci beaucoup. Let me go now on my right, on my left. Mr. Go ahead, please.
Thank you very much, Mukhtar and the rest of the panel. My name is Jeremy Okonjo from the University of Warwick. And I have a question and some reflections. The question essentially is, how do we engage productively with the rest of the global digital economy while addressing the risks of digital dependencies and vulnerabilities, since we have indeed highlighted that it is important for us to partner, especially with the private sector, etc. And I say this with the backdrop of the importance of the international economic law framework of the digital economy that is indeed key to Africa's growth of its share of the digital economy. And unfortunately, this international economic law framework that includes trade and investments agreements at the bilateral and multilateral level, in many instances, actually essentially remove from African governments certain policy options for industrial strategy that can actually address environmentally friendly digital economy policies, etc. And so it comes back to how we indeed generate a bold digital industrial strategy similar to the US, the EU, and other countries within this restrictive international economic law framework. Thank you.
Thank you very much for this very relevant question. Another one on my left. Please.
Thank you. Thank you so much. My name is Abtamu from Ethiopia Ministry of Finance. First of all, thank you very much for the moderators, presenters, and the panelists. I like to address two questions for the Ethiopian Mr. Siyum and for the virtual panelists. For the Ethiopian one, Ethiopia is launching various initiatives, strategies, and the policies regarding to these issues, as the panelists addressed regarding to the internet access is hiking, mobile coverage, telecommunication, broadband, and the other issues is developing. But is there, how about their status of impact so far? Have you seen the status of those digital development in Ethiopia on environmental issues? If there is some assessments you have seen. For the virtual questions, maybe for Ms. Arena or Mr. Sant, it is obvious that Africa is on the road of digital transformation. However, Africa is lagged behind on various issues. For instance, the ICT and its knowledge, access to electricity, internet use, mobile broadband, value addition in the value chain, and also waste reuse is minimal in Africa in compared to the advanced countries. Also, the cost of internet in Africa is very high than the advanced countries. On other side, the contribution of Africa to the carbon emission is minimal, including to the digital impact on the environment. So having these issues, what kind of policies or strategies needed for Africa? Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. The last one. Yes, go ahead, please. Yes.
Hello. My name is Daniel Duma. I'm a research fellow at the Stockholm Environment Institute in Sweden, where I lead a research program called Finance for Sustainable Development. And my focus in the last couple of years has been on looking at ways to make renewable energy projects commercially viable in ways that do not add to the sovereign debt of the countries, specifically in some African countries. And I was wondering, would data centers as new sources of significant energy consumption, could they be considered as viable off-takers, buyers of electricity in a way that enables commercially viable returns for renewable energy projects and does not impact the level of debt at the country level? So I'm just putting this question out there. It could be a solution to increase the deployment of renewables in a commercially viable way. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I think, Torben will answer on this question. You want the floor? Okay, for 1 minute, please.
It's very quick because just for our government panelists, recently
You introduce yourself, please.
My name is Tadessa from African Green Aspires for All Initiative called AGAFI. It's a local indigenous organization. It's for our government panelists. Apology if I missed the point. Recently, the government has launched it in cooperation with the United Arab Emirates, free online training for coders. I think this is a very big achievement. There's 5 million individuals can access that training, but from the news I heard recently, only 100,000 something were registered on it. So maybe if you add some thought on it, thank you.
Thank you very much. Now we have also some question online, but let's go now to the first round of response. And after that, if you have a time, we go to the online question. Now, let me start by Torbjörn. You have several questions during this Q&A addressed to you.
Thank you, Maktar, and thanks to all the people who made excellent presentations in the panel and also the questions that have been posed. I'll just pick up on a few of them. Let me start with the question that was posted online about how much of the value that is actually staying in Africa from the global mining related to critical minerals and so on. We don't have a number on that in the report, but we are stressing that in general, what is the problem right now for African countries that are rich in many of the natural resources that are needed for both the low carbon, the renewable energy transition and the digital transition are in Africa. And what we are stressing is the need to find ways to ensure that African countries that are rich in such minerals are able to transfer from mainly low productivity and value-added products and move more into higher value-added and high productivity activities from manufacturing and also by adding processing activities related to the minerals before they're exported to other countries. In fact, it's very hard to find any prominent players from Africa in terms of the refining and the processing of the critical minerals that we're talking about. Most of this is taking place in China or in some developed countries. And in fact, you can see a similar trend when it comes to electronic waste or digitalization related waste, that when there are low value activities related to the waste, it is typically exported to developing countries, including in Africa, whereas there is more high value activities or high value products from digital waste, such as printed circuit boards. They are typically exported from Africa and from other developing countries to developed countries where most of that value can be recovered. The other thing is to think about when it comes to value retention in Africa is of course the fiscal dimension of mining activities, how much of the fiscal revenue can be generated, because quite a large number of the mining activities, the formal mining activities, is taking place by foreign companies that are also coming in to invest in the economies in this area. And there were also references to data centers here. And we have a tendency to, first of all, let me just not to oppose to the use of green data centers, but I think we should be careful with that term, because I don't think any data centers are really green, because in order to create them, you need still the material, and typically when you go and upgrade the various data centers, it's generating more waste as well. So it is not only a question of carbon emissions. One has to look at the whole life cycle when looking at the environmental impact. In fact, the water dimension here is very important. And just to connect to the references that were made to both cryptocurrencies and also to artificial intelligence, just an example that we're citing in the report, Microsoft's training of GPT-3, which was the model that led to ChatGPT in the United States, required 700,000 liters of fresh water in the United States. And if that had instead been taking place in Asia, it is estimated that the amount of water needed would have been tripled. So also when we look at the potential and the opportunities for strengthening data centers in Africa, it's very important to see in terms of the environmental impact, is there very good access to electricity, ideally renewable electricity or power? Is there available water resources? In fact, even in the United States, many of the data centers that have been built there are in areas that can be considered being in water stress. So that, and the problem with the water is that you don't need just any water, you need fresh water. So this can be a competition with drinking water in other parts of society and so on. So one needs to factor that very carefully in when planning this. I want to also stress that we are not giving much attention to the indirect effects in the report to how we can use digital technologies to improve efficiency and how we can address various challenges. One of the challenges when it terms of assessing the amount of that such positive effects is related to rebound effects, meaning if we on the one hand can improve our efficiency through digitalization, that often leads to more consumption of such services and activities. So the net effect may still be more use of energy, more use of water, and so on and so forth. I think also the question from Senegal, if I understood him correctly, it was also a question, how can we strengthen the presence of relevant legislation and better formal collection systems and so on in Africa. And here I would just highlight important work by ITU and UNITAR in the global e-waste monitors and so on, and for a number of initiatives to provide technical assistance capacity building in Africa. And finally, the interesting comment by Daniel Duma from SDI in Stockholm. It's an interesting idea to look at whether data centers can be linked somehow to renewable energy. One should just also be careful so that the establishment of data centers doesn't lead to a crowding out net of the available energy that exists. We have looked a little bit at the concerns here about how the big data center and digital platforms are reporting on their share of renewable energy that is powering their activities. It depends very much on how you account for the kind of power purchasing agreements that they are engaging in. It may still not be fully renewable, even if it says from an accounting perspective that 100% is now powered by renewable energy. It's a tricky area. And there is always the concern if the big digital platforms don't invest in additional renewable energy power generation, that it could crowd out other parts of the sectors that would not have access to the same kind of renewable. So I will leave it at that. But again, thank you so much for your strong interest and for raising valuable points. Thank you.
Thank you for this clarification. I think it's very important. Now, let me ask my friend, Dr. Emmanuel, if you want to add something on the data center.
Yeah, thank you very much. And also the question that was asked by Daniel about how to make renewable energy commercially viable so that it can be used in a data center in a business model that does not impose more burden to the government. One of the most important thing here is, I think the report and the one I was talking also mentioned about new business models. We know data center consume a lot of energy, but they need more renewable energy. And renewable energy also has a big chain, because are you talking of solar, you're talking of battery, are you talking of wind turbines? It depends on what you are focusing on. But the most important thing is commercial viability. We're talking of opening up the data centers so that they're not only publicly owned, but owned by also the private sectors, so that you can have commercial agreements between private sectors and the data center operators and the renewable energy service provider, so that you can have a model that is, first of all, sustainable, but also meeting the needs of the parties, win-win model, which I think it could evolve because the demand for energy is high. But also more importantly on this, data centers need to be sustainable. So there must be a sustainable model for running data centers. I think most of the governments sometimes what they fail is how do they make the data centers to be self-sustainable, because data, you need it. You talk of digital government, you talk of transaction, you talk about payments of levies, services, registration, IDs, all these need the data center to process. So sustainable model for data center is quite critical for it to be able to meet the needs of today and tomorrow. So I believe, going back to Daniel, that there must be a commercial viable model between data center operators and energy providers, which could sustainably provide a win-win environment for the two to exist. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that. On the question related to the AFCTA, I give the floor to Mr. Kalu, and it will be completed by Dr. Tefera. Dr. Kalu, you have the floor.
Yes, thank you very much for that question. Very, very, very important question, even at this time. Because as a researcher, there's always a modality to put in place to check if you are doing well or you are not doing well. One of the first questions was harmonization of standards. And the question is, how do we have a system where the farmers are not judged or assessed based on international best practice? So I think the work is ongoing. AFCFTA is trying to harmonize standards. That is just the basic fundamental truth, which is a crucial step, especially for the agricultural sector. And that is why AFCFTA is currently working with, I think it's African Organization for Standardization, also, to spearhead this harmonization process to create standard for Africa. But we will not create standard that is alien to global best practice, but we have to create standard that will be able to, we also, because if you reduce the global standard for Africa because of our state, but we can't remain there forever. So I think AFCFTA is working on harmonizing standards. That is one. Two, it cannot be harmonized in isolation of consultation with other regions. Bear in mind that the process of farming is different from different regions. So there should be consultation that will go with it. There's also been capacity building for the farmers to understand that there's a new standard and bring them to that position. So that means why AFCFTA is working to harmonize, it has to consult, one, it has also train, and it has to also work with the national government and regional authorities. So I believe it's an ongoing thing. I think we have to commend ourselves as Africans in the first place. I know a lot of people say nothing is happening, AFCFTA has come. No, we started everything afresh. AFCFTA was signed in 2018, COVID-19 hit. And we came in to even start trading. Currently, the second phase of graduate trade initiative just started, and we are building up stuff. We have to commend ourselves for the effort we have done so far. So, and that brings me to another thing, because when we commend ourselves, we also have to tell ourselves the truth that we are not doing well. For example, we cannot have an effective AFCFTA without the free movement of people. Currently, people have signed and deposited, but only 4 countries have ratified the protocol on free movement of people. And I commend Rwanda at this junction. I was in Rwanda last week. I got to Rwanda, brought my passport out, went to the check-in. I said, I didn't fill any form online. I was panicking. No. They said, no, don't worry, just go to. I said, oh, where are you from? Oh, from Nigeria. Oh, what do you want to do? We're hosting the All African IP Summit in Rwanda sometime in November. Oh, okay. Where are you staying? They stamp. I said, where am I going to pay? They said, no way to pay. Just go. 30 days as an African. This is commendable, and I encourage other African countries to do. Nigeria has not ratified, and the other day, a country from East Africa said, "Oh, we're giving free visa and arrival, free visa for everybody in Africa." No, ratify the agreement that will hold you binding. It's not a presidential pronouncement that will help. So Africa has to take this serious. 4 countries ratifying it, we will not move far. But at the same time, we are making effort. I think that's non-economic issues that always ensure we don't do what brings Africa together. For example, say insecurity, how do we tackle it? But country like Rwanda is doing fantastically well using digital system, and that's what digital economy is coming in. So if we can digitalize most of our process, South Africa is also doing very well. For example, if you go to South Africa as a South Africa citizen, you don't need to go through stamping. You just go to the e-system and get it done. So if government put policies in place, it will stimulate and encourage investors to come in to be able to help them address the current challenges of infrastructure, the current challenges of insecurity by digitalizing the process.
Thank you very much for that. Thank you very much. I think we have a lot of things to say. Let me give the floor to Dr. Tafere to complete. Sorry, because we don't have enough time.
Yeah. Thank you very much. No, but my point would be just simply to complement that sometimes we forget when we look at FCFTA and we're in a hurry for it to be operational overnight. It took over 35 years for EU from the beginning for it fully to be operational. It takes time. But the FCFTA, it really has advanced a lot. Most importantly, there is political commitment, and sometimes we forget that this is the largest free trade area agreement with about 54 countries. The next one will be WTO, which is global. But at regional level, this is the largest free trade agreement. And they've completed the trade protocol, services protocol, and recently the digital trade protocol has been agreed. Now they're working on annexes. Standardization is critical because trading in a free trade area without having the right standard is unworkable. There is a draft and it's been agreed. The question now is, do you have your own regional standard, or how do you align it with multilateral existing standards? That's really the question. So on FCFTA, if my colleague who asked this question, if you have any doubts, I think the first time there is serious effort in Africa. It's not going to be easy to implement. There's a lot of challenges. Infrastructure, logistics, mindset, a lot of challenge. But I think for the first time is in Africa, we have moved from regional economic community into continental-wide agreement. So let's see. But let me quickly comment on the question asked about revenue from critical minerals and how do we ensure that it stays in Africa, it contributes to sustainable development. I think this is the most important issue that we are discussing. There are one or two critical issues here. First of all, these minerals are needed for sustainable way of managing digitalization. Therefore, we have to use them. The rest of the world needs them, and we have the minerals, so we have to make it available because they contribute to sustainability. This is one important point. The second point is, how do we do that while we're benefiting from it? Because we have, unfortunately, a very sad story in Africa in the past where we supply raw materials, but we don't benefit from it much. A mobile telephone, if you look at mobile telephone, for example, the suppliers of raw material get only 1% of the value added, 1%. The rest goes to the designers, the marketers, the owners of these intellectual properties, and those who manufacture the products. That's what we're trying to avoid by saying value addition. Is there a way we can add the value in the value chain? Africa is at the bottom of that value chain as suppliers of raw material. And then other countries do the value addition. So we want to have some significant share of that value chain. That is the effort. Now, the third component, which we haven't mentioned, is very important, is that these minerals, when they are being extracted, they can damage the environment. So how do we deal with that? Because as you know, mining pollutes. Mining is one of the major contributors of the carbon emissions. That's where the partnership with development partners is going to be important, so that they help us utilize technologies that are environmentally sound. Let me stop here. There are other things.
Thank you. Let me give to Mr. Sam for 2 minutes.
Okay, thank you. I reflect on the two questions. From the first one is Mr. Sartamo. I think the name is Mr. Abtamo. The ministry had different strategy in the policies. So what is the impact of the policy and the strategies? We are validate, review the Digital Ethiopia 2025 strategy. From that validation, we are see some impact of the strategy and the policies. One, for example, one of the policy, the telecom reform policies, we are see a good impact from that one. Currently, we can cover around 80 millions of mobile coverage. This is one of the policies. Currently, not before that, one of telecom operator in Ethiopia, Ethio Telecom, currently the price Safaricom, after coming the Safaricom, can increase the number of mobile coverage, connectivity, and so on. So that's so many impacts from the strategy and the policy. You can see that one. For the second one questions, how about 5 million coders? Currently, Ethiopia, we had 5 million coder initiative. This initiative with the collaboration of United Arab Emirates, the program for capacity, the digital capacity of the whole Ethiopian employees, not only employees, students and the whole society. The course coverage about the fundamental course of about the data science, Android and fundamental programming. This course prepare for the university students, the graduates, and the government official also. The course is prepared by different skill levels. The first one for the digital literacy and digital skill and upskilling. Those courses currently around 185,000 take this course. Some of graduated and take certificated from the hours information. So this initiative, a good initiative for currently Ethiopia. One of the basic reason and one of the basic challenge of the digital capacities were mentioned by the previous panelists. Also, the digital capacity of the main issue of for the success of the digital government. So this initiative can solve these types of problem. We had a good initiative. I think the two questions are right for me. This one, thank you.
Thank you. Last but not least, let me go to give the floor to Mrs. Irene. Irene, you have the floor.
Thank you. Yes. I think there was one particular question that wanted to understand the kind of policies that African countries can do. Time is short, but yeah, it's something that ITU squarely does, but I can pitch in a bit. So when we're talking of digital and ICT policies that African countries can do, we should first think of inclusivity in terms of considering those that are hard to reach, those disabled, considering the gender disparities. And also we advise government to consider subsidies for last mile connectivity so that we don't leave some populations behind. But also a key consideration is promoting local content and use so that the local companies can know that the production that is done is also contributed by local content. And we advise governments to think of innovative financing models because investing in digital technologies is expensive. It's resource consuming in terms of HR and financial capabilities. And the whole point of collaboration and partnership comes into play. How do we finance the business models that we want to see and focus on greening our infrastructure so that we avoid the things that have been highlighted in the report. But again, this is not inclusive of all the risks that have been identified. But in a nutshell, we recommend policies that are inclusive, that are focusing on innovative models, and that are bringing stakeholders and partners on board, including private sectors and civil societies who are the users and promoters in leveraging the digital technologies. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We are now at the end of this panel discussion. I'm going to ask each panelist to provide one word takeaway for this session or for the report. Let me start by you, Mrs. Eren.
Collaboration.
Collaboration.
Yes.
Mr. Kalu.
Reform.
Reform.
Policy reform.
No, one word, one.
Reform.
Reform, okay.
No silos.
It's not one word, it's two words. One word.
Silo avoidance.
Silo. Okay, doctor.
I have a hyphenated word. Go digital.
No, only one.
Okay, implementation.
Implementation.
Yeah,
Straight.
Straight, eh?
Straight.
Partnership.
Partnership, eh?
How did you use?
No, yes, I will repeat what you say. No, I think it's very. Thank you very much for this wonderful discussion. I think we discussed a lot of subject, a lot of issue, and we get a lot of recommendation, a lot of new ideas. And thank you once again to Torbjörn for the comprehensive presentation. And I would like to thank you for all panelists for their very good contribution. Also for the participants, they contribute a lot and also ask relevant questions. I think what we need, when we need to take away, it is we need collaboration. Collaboration is very important. If you want to build this digital society in Africa, and collaboration is key. Also, we need to do a new reform, even the AFCTA. We have the AFCTA, but we need to develop infrastructure. We need to develop connectivity. We have a lot of issues related to the E-West, and also we need energy. We need to have a new reform, a new thinking to develop the policy in the continent. We are a lot of partners also. We need to work collaboratively, private sector, government, international organization. We don't need to work in silence. We have to work together. It's something very important. And very important, we need to go straight to the reform. It's a very also something we have to do. We don't have a time to develop the continent. We have a lot of challenge and we need to go faster. Partnership I talk about, and also we need to implement the policy. We have a lot of policy in the continent, at the continental level, at the national level. We need to work together to implement this policy and also to look at this report, what kind of recommendation we can implement for the benefits of the continent. Thank you very much and see you soon. I think we have the report, go through to the report, read again. And if you need any other additional information, you have the contact of our UNCTAD colleague here, and also the lead from the report, Mr. Torbjörn, and you can ask any question online or you send the email by email. I think I suggest you send email online for UNCTAD office here and the email of Torbjörn. If you have any additional question, you can ask to them. Thank you very much, and thank you also for our panelists. And I leave the floor to the master of ceremony now.
Thank you very much, Magda, for steering the panel discussion and the Q&A session. I think you have also given your closing remarks.
Not yet.
Not yet? Okay, let me invite Diane to give her closing remarks and then we'll come back to you, Magda. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much. Thank you so much, Magda, for moderating this interesting session. I just want, first of all, to thank all the panelists for sharing your thoughts on this important topic related to environmentally sustainable and inclusive digital future. I believe it was very useful for everyone here in the room and even for our digital participants, our online participants. So what you shared, it's really important and it's going to help us moving forward and continue reflecting on this topic. I would like also to thank all the diplomatic missions for participating in this event and sharing your thought as well. I also want to thank academia who are present here. I believe this report is going to be a very useful tool in your research activities. Allow me also to thank our colleagues from both ECA and UNCTAD for organizing this very successful event, and especially Torbjörn for the presentation and for the reports. And it's also important to note that because of the digitalization, actually, we were able to host this event with almost 100 digital participants, online participants who were following the discussions from across the continent. So this is also something very positive. So let us use the recommendations from the report and have a new mindset with which promote a circular digital economy. So without really taking too long, once again, thank you all for participating to the event. And as it was mentioned, if you need a copy of the report, it's available online. And I hope you will enjoy to read the full report. Thank you so much.
Just to thank you all on behalf of the Executive Secretary. This very important event, it is a very important event for ECA. Why it is very important? Because now we have a full division dedicated to technology at ECA. And what of the core mission of this division, it is how to boost, to make this digital technology a reality for African country. How they can use digital technology to boost their development, how they can use digital technology to reach to the benefits estimated at $180 million, how to use digital technology to create more jobs, to find 680 million jobs, how African country can benefit, how we can boost digital technology for African countries to be in the fourth industrial revolution, and how to use digital technology to mitigate the impact of climate change. And why is this important? It is very important for ECA, and this collaboration with UNCTAD also. We collaborate with UNCTAD in several areas, but this one is very important. And I would like to thank you all, UNCTAD colleagues, for this wonderful collaboration, and Torbjörn also for leading this report. And next year, I think we are going to contribute to this report. We are ready to contribute to this, to the next edition of the report. And I would like to thank all the ECA team and UNCTAD team to make this event successful. I think it is a starting point. We have other events with UNCTAD. Thank you for all, and bon appetit.
That brings us to the end of the session. Thank you once again to all participants. I'd like to request the participants online to please open their cameras so we can take a group photo. And for those who are present in the room, you may depart at leisure. Thank you so much. Have a good afternoon. Participants online, could you turn on your cameras, please? Our online participants, I'm informed that the settings would not allow you to open your cameras. You apologize for that. And next time we will enable the function. Thank you very much and have a good afternoon. Bye.